Hi, been a while, but I'm happy to be back and to introduce you guys to the grand opening of Lovederu Season 2. It's basically the same thing as before, but slightly better, featuring more effort as well as a full-time commitment to the YouTube grind as I've now finally graduated. Now, there's only one way to start off this new stage of this channel, and that is with some good old-fashioned incest. This is really not helping with the incest guy allegations, is it? Now, I know I already made a video on this game and I do tend to avoid repeating topics, but the last video was a lot more so about the reaction to the game instead of the game itself, and while it is kind of impossible to discuss this game without at least touching on the reaction, a tiny bit, just a tiny bit,
this video is more about me just kind of talking about how much I f***ing adore this game. Now, I know this intro is dragging and your fragile attention spans are probably craving some stimulation, and so I'll give you just that, as I give you a brief recap on the episodes 1 and 2, all the way up until the newest one, episode 3.
Or, if you're clueless on the topic, then this may serve as an introduction for you. Now, The Coffin of Annie and Leyley is the story of these two siblings, Ashley and Andrew Graves, who we meet at the start of the game locked in quarantine, slowly starving to death, as there is said to be a deadly and very contagious disease in the water, and these two buggers are said to have it. But for some reason, the government that has them locked inside their apartment under this strict quarantine is just kind of refusing to actually give them food, so in a very desperate effort to survive, they resort to cannibalism. Now, I want to point out right now that this little reminder of the earlier chapters will be as quick as possible, as I don't want to make this video too much longer than it needs to be. So don't be surprised when I tell you something like cannibalism happens without further elaborating on it. You got it? Good. We move on. They managed to finally escape the prison of their apartment through killing a security guard, and now our protagonists are quickly on their run. This just about ends episode 1, and yeah, this isn't really the longest game, but episode 2 starts with the Graves siblings on the run trying to figure out where to go now. And eventually, through a lot of bickering, they land on robbing their parents. So after quickly dealing with an assassin sent to kill them with a swift bullet to the head, or multiple, we then swiftly move on to finally meeting your parents, and here you find out a lot that I am not going to be covering in this little recap. Play the game, I guess, bitch. But for now, all you gotta know is that you kill your parents and sacrifice them to a demon. Alright, did I forget to mention the demon Ashley can summon at any given time through the use of this talisman she found in the room of the first person they ate? I say first person they ate because they actually eat both their parents too after killing them. Fun times. It's in this chapter where the game splits into two routes, either burial route or decay route. Burial route has two different versions, friendship and the internet's favorite one, romance, which totally didn't lead to an explosion and a witch hunt that is still felt to this day. But I digress, because to reach episode 3, the burial route simply doesn't matter. We actually have to go the decay route, which is where Ashley and Andrew's relationship is, as the name implies, decaying, and very quickly at that. Meanwhile, burial route is where it's heading in a more positive direction. Heavy quotation marks on that positive, by the way. The closer these siblings get to each other, the worse things are for everybody involved. Now, to get the decay route, you have to consistently choose all the options that create disagreements between the siblings, such as choosing not to trust the other or going against their will in some way. This will build up resentment, mostly within Andrew towards Ashley, which is what sets us up for episode 3, which starts right where we left off in episode 2, that being just having disposed of the parent's body. Or more accurately, like what remained of them, considering you ate them, you sick freak. Oh, and also, Ashley seeing a vision of Andrew killing her. Another thing I forgot to mention, that too, the reason Ashley calls upon this demon and sacrifices people to him is because he allows her to see visions into the future. Now, with that being said, there's actually two different visions that Ashley can see in chapter 2, and these depend on what choices you have made. You remember how I mentioned an assassin before and how you can either shoot him once or multiple times? Now, if you choose the option where you turn the assassin into Swiss cheese, this leaves you with no bullets left, which is what gives you the vision of Andrew killing Ashley. Now, if you only shoot him once, like a reasonable person would, that leaves you with plenty of bullets left, which means your vision is now instead of Ashley shooting Andrew. Now, depending on which of these visions you got when playing through episode 2, you get 2 entirely different storylines in episode 3, which I was very pleasantly surprised to find, but this does mean I'll have to decide which of the routes to cover first, which I'll do by flipping a coin. And the results don't actually matter. I was lying to you this entire time. I'd already chosen which route I wanted to do before all of this. You dumbasses, these videos are scripted. Don't ever trust a YouTuber, kids. It'll save you from a lot of crypto rug pulls. You're welcome for that little piece of advice. See, don't tell your parents you don't learn anything on the Lovederu channel. I don't know what happened with my accent there. Moving on, to finally get into what this video is actually about, episode 3, and how amazing it was, because it sure was that. So what I've always adored most of all with the Coffin of Andy and Leyley is of course the character writing. I think Andrew and Ashley, more so Andrew, I can't lie, are amazing characters, and the relationship, although very twisted, is genuinely one of the most interesting I've seen in a hot minute. And episode 3 takes these things that were already my favorite part of the previous chapters and turns them up to a million. We get so much depth and information added to the story in this episode. I felt like a spoiled kid at the, I don't know, Robux checkout page. I don't think kids go to candy stores that much anymore. God, saying that made me feel old. Anyway, let's finally get into this chapter, and we're gonna first start with the route that leads to Andrew killing Ashley. And this route we'll call the cliffhanger route, as it ends on a cliffhanger. Obviously, I don't know why I had to explain that to you, retards. Now, already from the beginning of this chapter, and by beginning I actually mean about 2 hours in, because the first 2 hours is a mix of dream sequences and backstory, we can see how decayed Andrew and Ashley's relationship is, as she casually holds a cleaver to Andrew and threatens his life. So, well, at least this is further away from the right? Anyway, the reason she does this is to ask whether Andrew is currently Andy or Andrew. Now, for you uninformed, this is a great way for me to introduce you to this concept. You see, obviously this game is called the Coffin of Andy and Leyley, and not the Coffin of Andrew and Ashley. So who exactly are Andy and Leyley? Well, basically, when Andrew and Ashley were kids, they would call each other Andy and Leyley. And throughout the game, you'll find either drawings or Ashley will mention how something is, quote, an episode of Andy and Leyley. This is clearly to show that as kids, they would play around with each other, probably pretending they were the main characters of some kind of show, and they went on adventures together. Ashley is very attached to this time in her life, because this was when Andrew was, for lack of a better term, fully obedient towards her. Him being a little kid saddled with the responsibility of another kid, he felt he needed to do everything in his power to make Ashley happy, which often required just kind of doing everything she said, because otherwise the spoiled little would just throw a fit. This question of whether Andrew is, well, Andrew, or if he is Andy, is basically a way for Ashley to check if she's in charge or not. Andrew, in the episodes we have been playing through, has been trying to stray away from the role of Andy. He wants to distance himself from Ashley and this attachment he has to her, as well as this role of both kind of her dog and her protector. Andrew sees Andy as a different person he doesn't want to go back to being. Meanwhile, Ashley sees Andrew being Andy as a sign that she has won, that he has given up and will stay with her forever. So this question that may seem small and insignificant is actually a very important choice, and the answer to it is very clear, isn't it? We know what we're picking, right? No, not that one. Not that one. Oh my god. You horny beasts. Are you happy now? This is your ending? This is what you wanted? Are you happy? Are you content? You know what? That. We're Andrew, okay? You. And now that we've finally chosen the correct choice, Ashley and Andrew start an argument that will set a dangerous precedent for their relationship going forwards. That being the fact that Andrew hits Ashley. For the first time, Andrew resorts to violence to end one of their arguments. We're just at the start of the chapter, and the relationship has already hit a dangerous all-time low, and we're only going lower from here as you continue on and sacrifice and kill a family of 3. Yeah, you do murder your first child. Congratulations, I guess. You have to make a deal with the demon to enter his lair, and yada 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 puzzles ensue until you eventually reach the top of his tower, where Ashley brings up the idea of just staying here in the demon realm. What you briefly saw in the Andy ending is Andrew agreeing to this idea, giving up on any idea of ever being happy and committing to staying with Ashley for the rest of his life. But in this route, we chose Andrew, and he's just gonna say no. But somehow, this entirely spirals into a conversation about inbreeding, so let's talk about that. Okay, yeah, I'm not playing more than 1 second of that. I have no clue if that's copyrighted or not, and this joke is not worth getting copyrighted for, okay? It's not nearly that good. Anyway, it's time to discuss the topic of these two goobers. Because as Andrew correctly observes in the scene, there's been an uptick of Ashley mentioning letting Andrew taste the nectar of the devil. This, of course, being... You know what? I'm not even reading that. I don't know what I was on while writing this, but I'm not even reading that. Yeah. Bad jokes aside, within this route, the sexuality of both Ashley and Andrew is explored to an honestly almost uncomfortable depth, and I use that in the best way possible. We start here with Ashley, who reveals here in this conversation that she's been trying to plant this idea of them having sex in Andrew's mind because she's scared of the vision in which Andrew tries to kill her. Her logic being, if they get close enough to sleep together, his urge to murder her will probably go away. Which is a lot. Through this chapter, it becomes kind of apparent how Ashley is honestly not really interested in sex at all. At any given point where the idea of sex is considered, she always points out how she could put up with it for Andrew instead of it being something she actually actively wants herself. This is honestly a bit of a turnaround for her character in a way, and it recontextualizes a lot of the ways she's used her sexuality in the past. She kind of gives this impression that she is the horny one, that she's the one who really wants to f her brother, but this episode kind of seeks to throw that on its head, instead arguing that Andrew is actually the one who wants to f Ashley. Ashley just kind of makes use of that fact, and this is further proven when, at the end of this conversation, this happens. Yeah. In this episode, not only does their relationship lean the closest it's ever been towards hate, but it also leans the closest it's ever been towards romance. Basically, to understand how Ashley and Andrew's relationship works, you can't look at it as a scale of love to hate. Instead, it's more of a horseshoe. The closer Andrew gets to full-on hating Ashley, the closer they get to getting together. Or an alternative way to look at it is the closer Andrew gets to killing Ashley, the closer they get to It is insanely unhinged how this is where the relationship has ended up, but it honestly makes perfect sense as this route focuses a lot on Andrew and his feelings, and most importantly, the past that brought him to this situation. As I said earlier, the game starts with about 2 hours worth of backstory, so let's revisit that a bit. Basically, this backstory follows Andrew and Ashley as kids. The flashback starts and ends the same exact way, with Andrew getting handed a grade by his teacher. At the start of this flashback, he gets handed a perfect score, as well as a compliment by his teacher. This clearly brings Andrew a lot of joy, and throughout this flashback we see how Andrew has big dreams and ambitions for himself, and he's clearly very capable of reaching these dreams, considering his grades. But the flashback ends with Andrew receiving the test with the note, "Passable. Do better." The compliment from the teacher now replaced with a question. Did you even try? The answer is no. He didn't even try. Because in his own words, why would he try for his future when it doesn't benefit Leyley? What we see in this flashback is Andrew wanting to push for his future, but having the prospect of that ruined by Ashley at every turn. He wants to study, but Ashley refuses to do this, so he has to make her. He wants to study, but Ashley runs away, so he has to find her. He wants to study, but Ashley ripped apart his material. He wants to study, but nobody cares what he wants, because his only purpose is to take care of Ashley. Andrew abandons his own life to stay by Ashley's side. He does everything for her. He cares for her. He protects her. He lies for her. He kills for her. He throws away his life for her. And all she gives him back is all of this bullshit. constant arguments, constant insults, constant do this Andrew, do that Andrew, why don't you love me Andrew, why don't you care about me Andrew, 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 Andrew. This is where his hate is born. But what about the love? Or more accurately, what about the lust? Well, later on in the episode, we get to go through more of Andrew's memories, but in earlier chapters, we only ever really get to see them as kids. But now we get to see Andrew as a fully fledged high school boy. And just like any other high school boy, his hormones are going wild at this time. Now, we've all seen how Ashley behaves around Andrew in the games. Super clingy, super touchy, super always on him, and super flirty. This isn't something that started recently. Even during high school, she acted like this, even in public. And eventually, people took note of this, resulting in a rumor going around the school, Andrew f***ed his sister. If I bring up the topic of these two f***ing, does an image of that pop into your head? If not, maybe if you read a book, that'll have a more concrete description. Will that then put a picture in your head? Most of us people will hear something and immediately we seek to pair this audio with an image. We hear a voice that we recognize, we pair it with the person's face. We read a book and we pair the descriptions to an image in our head. We hear about something happening and we will try to imagine what that might look like. Especially teenagers. As a teenager, your brain is at its most active and at its most horny. You're often going to be thinking about all words I'm gonna censor, so you're probably feeling quite lost right now. Anyway, the point is, when Andrew has to hear about this idea of him and his sister f***ing, it plants this seed in his head, this idea. Especially as it becomes a rumor around the school, especially as his sister is already flirty, especially as his sister brings attention to her body to him because to her these are just jokes. But to Andrew's mind, these are all starting to add up to create a dangerous idea. Now, I'm not here trying to argue that you can just gaslight any old person into wanting to f*** their sister. Andrew is a special case because of the relationship he has had to have with his sister way before this. Andrew has grown up with his sister being his whole world. He has grown up with his sister being jealous whenever he has friends, let alone a girlfriend. He has grown up in a way that has kind of conditioned him into no longer viewing Ashley as a sister. Honestly, he can view her as anything but a sister. A demon, the worst person alive, the reason his life sucks, his burden, his anchor. But worst of all, he can view her as a woman. It is within that view that the lust begins. He knows he can't have a girlfriend because Ashley would freak out. He's a teenager, of course he's interested in sex, but the only woman available is Ashley. Honestly, this is only like a few of the reasons that came together to create this mindset within Andrew, and that's what I really love about the writing of the Coffin of Andy and Leyley. Not a single line is really wasted. I know it might seem like all these flirty moments between siblings are just there to make the player uncomfortable or for shock factor, as some people argue, but I think that's a really bad argument because for most people that play this game, once they get to the scene where Andrew and Ashley f*** in episode 2, they don't feel shocked at all. And the reason this happens is because the entire time these characters have been built up and characterized in a way where things that would normally make zero sense, like your sister, kind of starts to just actually make sense because you've seen it yourself. You've seen how Andrew's mind has been conditioned over and over and over again. But what really makes Andrew's character interesting is how he rebels against this. Andrew is the type of character that would usually be described as good on the inside. Now, I usually hate these types of characters. I'm gonna be completely honest here. As a firm believer that there is no such thing as somebody who is good on the inside, either you do things making you a person, or you do good things making you a good person. But Andrew is different from me, because he does things. He does things all the time. And he is a person, I'm not gonna argue otherwise, and neither does the game ever. But trying to deny that there is something more to him than just being a bad person would just be ignorant of me. See, the thing with Andrew is that he continuously tries his absolute best to fight against all of the bad that comes with Ashley and how his brain has been conditioned. He has these strong morals, and he would truly love nothing more than to be able to abide by these morals. But the things around him make it genuinely borderline impossible to do such a thing. Now, I'm not trying to argue that he's some sort of angel that had no choice in what he did. All the choices he made in the game, all the actions he took, bad and good, are entirely his choice. He made those choices. But what makes him interesting is how far he goes to try to not make those choices. A good example of this comes with Julia, Andrew's girlfriend, who we get to know a bit about in episode 1 and 2, but in this episode she's explored way deeper. This starts with us finding out that Andrew got together with Julia simply to disprove these rumors about him and Ashley. In episode 1 and 2, we're kind of led to believe that this relationship between Andrew and Julia was a good thing that Ashley just ruined. But through this episode, we find out that it actually never really was. Andrew was using Julia. He was using her as a way to attempt to create distance between him and Ashley. If he loves Julia, he won't have to love Ashley. If he leaves with Julia, he doesn't have to leave with Ashley. If he f***s Julia, he won't have to f*** Ashley. This is Julia's purpose. She's not a person to Andrew, but instead a tool to use to defend himself from Ashley. This is the thing with Andrew and why he becomes such a bad person. He has this moral line that he doesn't ever want to cross, this being his sister, and he tries to do anything to not cross this line. The issue being, in trying to be moral or ethical or whatever by not f***ing his sister, he instead is depraved in every single other way possible. This is why I've never understood people who want to claim that the Coffin of Andy and Leyley is romanticizing incest, as if incest isn't literally depicted as the complete rock bottom of morality, even lower than f***ing murder and cannibalism. It's truly mind-boggling to me. Andrew as a character is someone who has been raised so f***ing badly. He's been implanted with so many awful thoughts and reflexes, and yet all he wants to do is combat this nature of his. He wants to combat these dark desires that he has in any way possible. Unfortunately, this route kind of ends here. There's this scene where we explore deeper Andrew's current feelings on Ashley, and it's honestly a bit hard to listen to. If we bring back our horseshoe gauge, he's about here. He hates Ashley so much at the end of this route. After meeting this demon that leads him through his memories of Ashley, his anger reaches a complete boiling point. He kills Leyley in his mind, cutting her into pieces. The current Ashley appears sobbing the death of their relationship. Andrew is so uncaring he doesn't react a bit to this. He talks about how he regrets not treating her worse, how he regrets actually trying to fix their relationship. He fantasizes about her, before realizing she would never even resist in the first place if he tried anything, so what's the point? It's honestly really heavy. Andrew has completely snapped. He has reached his breaking point and his feelings are now only a mess of lust and hatred. Even the demon points out this contradiction. Andrew stumbles over his own words, struggling to even make sense of his own feelings. Then he mumbles through his hands, "She means so much, but I can't even f***ing hold her." Andrew realizes he's far too gone at this point. His mind is filled with nothing but contradictions. He laments the idea that he can't hold her, but in the same breath he detests the idea that he would ever want something like that. He breaks down, realizing he's completely and utterly broken. But for the first time in this game, there's someone there for him. The demon comforts him. His name throughout this entire game, something terrifying, instead being replaced with something kind. This scene honestly means everything. It is the sweetest thing ever, and it is the only moment of genuine empathy and care that we see in this entire game, and it comes from a demon. This scene just puts in contrast everything we've seen in this game, all the actions of all the characters, leaving but a simple message. Humans are truly worse than demons sometimes. And unfortunately, that's the cliffhanger the episode ends on. It's a genuine tragedy, but I am more than interested to see where this game goes next. With the last thing that happened being the demon promising to help Andrew get rid of these thoughts and feelings that have been haunting him all this time. The question is, At this point, doesn't even know which side of the horseshoe he wants to be on. Now don't leave just yet. It's been so long into the video you probably expected it to be over by now, but you're forgetting something. There is an entire other route. So let's get into that, shall we? Now, of course, to get this route, as stated before, you gotta get the vision of Ashley killing Andrew, which will become relevant very quickly. This route starts off pretty early into the episode, right here after you sacrifice the family. If you remember, in the other route, you make a deal with the devil to sacrifice the police and then you enter this room. But in this route, once you get back from killing an innocent child, Andrew finds Ashley has set up a campfire, at which she is burning the body of one of the members of the family you sacrificed to the demon. This is different from the other route, since in that route, Andrew is the only one to kill one member of the family, since he kills the kid. So he feels bad for that and blames himself for the failure and them needing to make a deal with the demon. But in this route, Ashley also ends up committing murder despite Andrew telling her not to. The reason being, when you sacrifice someone to the demon, they don't actually die, they just lose their soul. Which means you kinda leave behind zero evidence for the police to get suspicious of. They'll just label these people as either brain dead or in a coma. Meanwhile, if you kill them after sacrificing them like Ashley is doing here, once the police reach the scene, they'll mark this down as murder, which could actually lead back to the siblings. So in this route, instead of feeling bad for killing the kid, Andrew is instead just angry at Ashley for directly ignoring what he told her not to do. This, paired with the deal Ashley makes with the devil right after this, only adds to Andrew's anger. So if we recap here, we have the threat in the car and Andrew using violence signifying a clear shift in their relationship, immediately followed up by the stress of his own mistake as he had to kill the kid, not to mention the kid got to call the police beforehand, so they're also just kind of about to get arrested. All this just to return to Ashley feeling bad and wanting to apologize to her, just to find out that it didn't matter anyway since Ashley went against what you wanted and was literally burning this guy alive. And then as the cherry on top, she sacrifices the police officers to make a deal with the devil that you told her, again, not to make. And now you find yourself stuck in the demon realm. All of these different things piled up on each other has Andrew in a real bad mood. And then, as per usual, they have an argument where Ashley says she did nothing wrong. And it's all Andrew's fault. And he finally just cracks. He talks about killing himself, genuinely wanting to end his life. And when Ashley keeps pushing and talks about just leaving him here to do that, he decides he's taking her with him before finally pulling out the cleaver. Ashley runs away, realizing this is exactly like her vision, and now you get to play as Andrew as you chase your sister, and Ashley keeps just trying to calm them down, but her efforts are in vain. Everything she says is going in one ear and out the other. He's completely and utterly done with Ashley and everything that comes with her.
Now eventually you catch up with her and you kind of just run around in a circle with her, and you can catch her here and kill her, but that kind of just ends the game right then and there because Andrew kills himself right after this. So it's not too interesting. But if you don't catch her, on the other hand, eventually she pulls out her gun and threatens to shoot. But Andrew, of course, knows she won't actually do it. This scene really illustrates how done Andrew is with Ashley at this point. She keeps trying to argue with him as they usually would, talking about how little Andrew means to her and how she'll replace him when he's dead. She talks about how he's a whore for losing his virginity while she stayed loyal, things like that would usually rile him up, but he simply doesn't react to it anymore. He's well and truly done with all of it. This scene really shows how Ashley actually treasured these arguments. Even when they were fighting, even if it was driving Andrew absolutely insane, she was always enjoying it. We even see this earlier in the episode where they argue and Andrew apologizes for going too far, even though it was something that could have easily come out of her mouth. Andrew genuinely loves and cares for Ashley, so she gets the privilege of enjoying these things. She gets to start these arguments and make Andrew feel like but that's fine for her because it makes her feel more important, more cared for, more loved. Andrew just smiles through all of the bullshit she's throwing at him. This bullshit that should make him upset because he cares for her, right? And he loves her. But he simply doesn't anymore. So he just doesn't care. This is literally the absolute worst thing that can happen to Ashley. Well, second worst, because after she realizes Andrew isn't gonna buy her bluff, she puts the gun down.
But Andrew immediately jumps on top of her, trying to take the gun from her, which is when the demon finally intervenes and Ashley begs it to stop him, saying she'll give him anything. He, of course, accepts before removing Andrew's soul from his body. So as you've probably noticed by now, this route kind of shows off Andrew and Ashley's relationship at its worst. But it's only gonna get worse from here, as Andrew eventually gets to be reunited with his soul, but unfortunately for him, he awakens to find himself chained up to a wall in some random apartment. He is now fully a captive. Now, with Ashley being as dumb as she is, it doesn't end up being too hard for him to escape. The tragedy of this episode comes with the fact that he simply returns. Andrew was finally going to break the loop by killing Ashley. Honestly, the ending where you kill Ashley is one of the better ones. But then he calmed down and fell right back into the loop. This started when he woke up to the sound of Ashley crying. All this feeling of resentment kind of just faded away at the sight of her in actual pain. Without that anger blocking these feelings of care and love he has for her, he's bound to just end up back right in her grasp, just like always. But Andrew is becoming more aware of this fact, even commenting on how a few tears is all that's required to pull him back in. He thinks he's pathetic for it, but honestly I get him completely. It's that time again when Lovederu gets overly personal in his videos. Everyone's favorite time of the video, I'm sure. You see, I had a relationship that had a similar loop to the one Andrew is stuck in. Now obviously my partner wasn't nearly as bad as Ashley, cause this is the fucking devil right here, but the repetition of argument, them saying they were gonna change and then doing the exact same thing that started the argument in the first place, this loop of getting mad at them and then buying their bullshit again because you just want things to be good between you. You want your relationship to be nice, and it can be as long as they're actually telling the truth when they say they want things to be better. But they never are. Ashley's never telling the truth when she says she'll be good, but Andrew tricks himself. Simply because he wants nothing more than for her to be telling the truth, simply because he cares too much to leave her. It's sad that this route follows Andrew as he just kind of gives up. He tries escaping before just waltzing his ass back into captivity. Andrew has always smoked. It was kind of some way for him to try to deal with the stress that Ashley causes. But in this chapter, at his current mental state, smoking just isn't enough. He starts drinking, heavily drinking. Andrew spends most of this episode completely drunk, and it is just sad. Honestly, this entire episode is just as sad as this game gets, as Andrew is basically just a husk of his former self, and Ashley spends her days having to follow the order of a demon, and when she's not doing that, she's just desperately trying to get things back to normal. Heavy quotations on normal yet again. But that's not gonna happen. Things aren't gonna go back to normal. No. Things are gonna get worse. They're only gonna get a lot worse. Especially after Andrew pulled his little stunt and left. Even if he did come back, this is something that shocked Ashley to her core. Andrew was actually capable of leaving her. Even if he wasn't capable of staying gone, just the fact he was capable of leaving is bad enough. This is a point in Ashley and Andrew's relationship I call the leyley point. In both routes, the relationship reaches this point where Andrew no longer sees Ashley as Ashley anymore and instead sees her as leyley. In the first route, this happens during Andrew's dream sequence right before he decides to kill Ashley in his dream. In this route, it technically happens way earlier than this point, but we kind of ping pong between this and their relationship being some form of okay. So we can say that this entire route we've been dancing on the line of reaching the leyley point, but now here we are. We're here. After Andrew comes back from leaving, we have now fully reached the leyley point. And what this point means is that Andrew no longer sees any good in Ashley. She has reverted to being leyley, which to him is when she's at her worst. Her few good points now instead being replaced with the overwhelming amount of bad ones. Andrew has no feelings for leyley except one. And it's not love, it's not lust, and it's not care. It's only hate. The leyley point isn't something that was really explored at all in earlier chapters, but I do really love it as an extra component of their relationship, as it kind of serves as a direct contrast to Ashley and her view of their relationship.
As we've already established, Ashley wants nothing more than for Andrew to go back to being Andy. But Andrew is the complete opposite in the way that Ashley going back to being Leyley signifies a breaking point. This really shines a light on how what these two want from this relationship are polar opposite things. Ashley loves this chaos. Ashley loves the fighting, the arguing, all the bullshit that Andrew hates. Because at the end of the day, Andrew just wants the relationship to be good.
In the first route, we reach the Leyley point when Andrew is with the demon going through his past. But then the game ends. So we don't exactly get to see how this affects Andrew and the relationship, but this route reaches the Leyley point and then it keeps going. And what we get to see is that past the Leyley point, there really is no more Andrew. Andrew, as we know him, completely disappears, and in his place is pure and utter malice.
The hatred and anger he feels consumes him utterly, and in this route we see it come out in its worst form: violence. We got a taste of the violence Andrew is capable of near the beginning of this episode, but little did we know it was nothing except foreshadowing for this. After arguing over and over and over again, Andrew just can't take the arguments anymore. He tries running away from Ashley, but she keeps following him. He tries telling her to stop, but she keeps pushing. He wants to disengage, but at a certain point he just can't. And then he stops it all in the only way he feels he has left: violence. This moment marks a line crossed. This relationship is no longer a one-way torment of Ashley tormenting Andrew as he tries his best to fix them. It's now a trade of malice being responded to with more malice. It absolutely can't get any worse than this. At least that's what I thought. Ashley begs for Andrew not to end her life. She tells him that he should just keep her around because she can bake. Andrew knows this is stupid, but he decides to just go take a nap instead of dealing with, her and what he has now done to her. Ashley wakes him up after finishing baking some oatcakes. Andrew is confused on how to feel. Something that is honestly classic him at this point. He doesn't know if he should be mad at Ashley or if he wants to make her happy, if he wants to kiss her or if he wants her to go away. But honestly, it doesn't matter anyway, as Ashley starts coming on to him. Andrew is drunk. He's vulnerable. He knows this. Ashley knows this. He begs her not to do this, but she keeps pushing. He tells her he doesn't want this, but she keeps pushing. We know Ashley is only doing this because she knows she can take advantage of the fact Andrew is drunk. She even encourages him to drink more when he starts sobering up more. He begs her over and over again to stop, telling her they can do it some other time even. Anything to get her to stop. But she never does. It's honestly hard reading this text. The manipulation, the pressure, taking advantage of Andrew's emotional state as well as his physical state with how drunk he is. He even gets close to fainting because of it. I honestly thought it couldn't get worse than Andrew beating Ashley up the way he did. But then immediately Ashley had to one-up him by raping him. And I don't want to hear anyone calling this anything except what it is. Ashley rapes Andrew. This is further emphasized with his reaction. Him waking up and looking to the side and not seeing another person but a disgusting lump. The literal first thing he says to Ashley when she wakes up is, "If I did that to you when you were drunk, I'd be in jail." It's so utterly disturbing watching how ruined Andrew is after this. This right here is pure rock bottom. This route is the game showing you exactly what this vision from episode 2 never was a good thing. Never was something romantic. This route is showing you exactly how bad things need to get for Andrew and Ashley to actually and to really shoot that point home, they both kill themselves shortly after one last argument in the morning. And on that very sour note, we conclude episode 3 of the Coffin of Andy and Leyley. Wait! Actually, while editing this video, I found out that there is actually a way to stop Andrew and Ashley from killing themselves here. So basically, before the Fable night, you can find this engagement ring laying on the floor. Andrew decides to keep it to pawn it off later, but after he wakes up, I guess the engagement ring makes him feel a bit less angry and a bit more sentimental, as it's hinted that Ashley might have bought it. They have a bit of an argument, but it's not nearly as bad, and instead of ending with suicide, Andrew is flip-flopping as is more his style. So, not being able to make a decision on where to go next, he plays eeny meeny miny mo with the cleaver, the gun, and the engagement ring. And with how the worst option always seems to be the one that wins out in this game, the engagement ring wins. And so Andrew and Ashley get figuratively married. And we skip forward in time to them living in an apartment together. Ashley working for the demon and Andrew working for minimum wage. I honestly couldn't even tell you which one of these is a worse fate. Yet again, just as I had thought we had seen the most depraved this game would get with their suicide, I hadn't stopped to even consider that they might just keep living. Ashley and Andrew now living on, eternally torturing each other. They're still together, not out of love, not out of care, but out of habit. I think at this point there isn't much between them except hate. But I guess there's comfort in that hate. Comfort in that eternal suffering that you both probably deserve. Ashley's apparently pregnant here too, but honestly that doesn't even bug me at this point. What really crawled under my skin, on the other hand, is Andrew's description of their life. Usually this would be the point where the characters get to live happily ever after. But not in this story. Instead we get this. How did you manage to fuck up this bad? Not only did you achieve nothing at all, but you couldn't even commit to putting an end to all this pointlessness. Your relationship remains a mess. All your crimes unpaid for. You've no control over your life and your spine bears a striking similarity to a gummy worm. What a big hoopla to end up exactly where you started from. Only the couch looks different. Because on that she spreads her legs and pretends to enjoy you. She claws at you hard enough to draw blood, and you tell yourself it's a kink. But really, she just wants to give back some of the pain you cause. You love her enough to know this, yet hate her too much to care. Oh well, here's where your life has led you now. At least she's safe in your arms, the days you don't resent her. She remains a childish, disrespectful, insecure, selfish bitch of a woman. You have become violent, pathetic, yesterday's soggy leftovers of a man. Together forever, never happy, never ever. But she's yours. She's yours. All yours. You take the situation for what it is, and she takes it for a joke. Two little roaches hiding from the world in their own personal hellhole of an apartment. Relationships are strange. A lot of people don't understand toxic relationship. They don't really understand the concept of it. They'll ask you things like, oh well, if it's so toxic, why don't you just leave? But it's never that easy. A relationship can be toxic, and you can still love the person that you're in this relationship with. You can still care for them and want to be with them. You can still feel attached to them. It hasn't been long now since I was planning on trapping myself in a relationship similar to the one we see in the Coffin of Andy and Leyley. I kind of tricked myself into thinking that it'd be the better option, that it would be better than staying stuck in this situation that I was already in. I wasn't happy with this person. I knew I wasn't, and a part of me even knew that I was probably being abused. But somehow, it felt easier to leave than to stay. Somehow, it felt easier to leave to something that might be worse than to stay in what I already knew fucking sucked.
Even if it was only for a few months. I wanted to get away. You see, Andrew was more scared of death than he was of being stuck, eternally tortured by Ashley. After all, it was what he was used to already. I was more scared of staying stuck in the situation I had been stuck in for the longest fucking time than I was scared of going to America and being abused. Because I'd already been through it for the last 2 years. A few more months of it couldn't hurt, right? I'm glad I never ended up setting foot in America. And I'm glad it's been over a year since I ever spoke to this person. Since they ever had the power to directly impact my life. My love for this game comes from how absurdly well they depict a toxic relationship. How absurdly clear these signs are pointed and how realistic the way they affect Andrew is. Anytime I saw myself in this game, I saw it as a reminder of my situation in the past because it was so similar. But that's not a bad thing because I saw it as a reminder of what I had managed to escape, what I had managed to survive through. And it sounds really cheesy to say now that I'm saying it, but it felt good to be reminded of how much better my present is compared to my past, and how much stronger I am now than I was back then. I want to just apologize to the creator of this game for all the shit he had to go through to make this. And I'm sorry about the shit that you must have gone through to be able to write a story this good. I hope this game or this video reaches anyone at all in a toxic relationship. If you're out there watching this or playing the game and you can see yourself in anything that happens in this game, in any moment of Andrew and Ashley interacting, I just want to wish you the best of luck, the absolute best of luck. And I hope you find somebody that gives you the love that you deserve. I hope you find somebody that cares for you the way you deserve to be cared for. Because at the end of the day, we all deserve love, right?